Good evening to all my fellow up-and-coming influencers. Have you ever felt overwhelmed and confused on how to navigate the world of media? Well, have no fear, because today we will learn about and understand the concept of media literacy, a practice in how to effectively and critically analyze the information presented to us. If that sounds intriguing to you, then stay tuned. So what exactly is media literacy? Well, media literacy is what helps us navigate the vast array of information presented to us. Examples of prominent media in the world include social media, like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, etc., which is used by 5.66 billion people in this whole world, according to statistics as of 2025. There's also cinema and cinematography and emotional literacy, which is the ability to navigate and critically analyze certain emotional states that are aroused by new changes in mood, or when somebody's presented with a piece of information that makes somebody feel very strongly, either angry or sad or happy or scared. There's a whole bunch of media out in the world today, and there are 4 different types of building blocks that construct what we know as media literacy. And they are skills, which are the tools that aid in building and guiding our perspective to obtain information. There's knowledge structures, which assist in organizing certain information into our memories. And our own personal locus, which is our own way of using our knowledge structures as the driving force behind our goals and personal motivations. So since we kind of know what media literacy is, why is it important to us? Well, as I've previously mentioned, it is our own personal guide to navigating the overwhelming world of constant information being thrown at us. And through this course, we will be encouraged to engage in checking facts to make sure everything is as unbiased and as quote-unquote true as possible, civil discourse, discovery of personal bias, and the real intent behind which some sources may be questioned. When analyzing media, one exceptional tool that we use to navigate through this world is what's called the 4-dimensional analytic tool. There are 4 parts to this, first being timing, which refers to where and when an event takes place. There's valence, which refers to the overall reception of the topic, which can be positive, negative, or altogether in the middle as a neutral. And it is all relative to the person or the people involved who are judging. As in other words, it's all in the eyes, the ears of the believer themselves. There is intentionality, which showcases the deliberate nature of the information, as well as its purpose for being pushed. And then there is type, which is the variety of forms and how the information at hand impacts us individually and collectively. An example I often like to go for in this scenario is the impact of music, specifically the impact of the legendary rock and roll band Nirvana. Now, for timing, Nirvana's music has been credited by many in the media as a game-changing cultural shift that ended the reign of music from the 1980s. When their second album came out in 1991, it completely influenced, changed, and just completely blew away everybody in the music scene in a way that can still be felt to this very day. Because music of the previous era was very polished and very superficial to many audiences, whereas Nirvana's music had this raw aggression, catchiness, and authenticity to it that completely redefined what rock music was and still does to this very day. So their impact was both immediate and long-term. For valence, the impact of Nirvana has been viewed in both a positive and negative light. Now, some of the older guard of music fans viewed Nirvana as the death of rock and roll and the death of the rock star, since Kurt Cobain, who was the band's singer, was not your typical rock star in that he wasn't super macho, and he didn't dress in crazy fashion. Now, others view Nirvana as a positive influence, an overwhelmingly strong influence on the current music scene by changing the way we viewed what rock music could be, what it could sound like, who could listen to it, and who could be a rock star. For intentionality, Nirvana created their style of music in a way that contradicted the music that came before them. As previously mentioned, while the older guard bands were polished, clean, and easy listening, occasionally viewed as shallow, Nirvana's music was raw, energetic, introspective, and fresh. Their style and sound can be heard in many varying genres today. And then finally, for type, Nirvana's music pushed an attitudinal effect in shaping how music could be viewed, composed, and listened to. In certain impacts that can change our view all of a sudden and bring it back to normal, we often look at a graph-like presentation of what's called a baseline and fluctuation. Now, the baseline makes a gradual impact on how we are informed over time. So if you look at the graph and you see a line going straight across horizontal and slightly upwards, that's the baseline. It's not changing drastically, it's not necessarily straight, it's growing but very, very steadily. And a fluctuation occurs when there is a sudden spike in the baseline that is sudden yet brief. This reflects the upgrade or downgrade to a person's cognitive state of thinking. For example, when we are feeling healthy, the baseline remains on a stable rise. And then a fluctuation may occur like when we get sick or when we quit unhealthy habits like smoking, which can positively or negatively increase our current state. Now, this all happens before returning to normal. And involving the media, an example could be somebody who maybe regularly reads up on the news and is informed and gradually encouraged to pursue new changes in society. Any fluctuations could be maybe a controversial statement said by a popular social media influencer, which results in a sudden spike in interest and a loss of following. For example, the YouTube sensation Logan Paul created controversy back in 2017 when he visited the Japanese suicide forest, and at the time his population was on the gradual rise. After this bit of information, though, his popularity took a sudden and sharp decline before over time returning to normal. The shock was brief, but everybody surprisingly returned back to their normal state after giving it some time. As we mature in our ways of thinking, we become able to distinguish and understand different ways in thinking, the context, different motivations, and etc. Our exposure to various types of media shapes our view on how the information is perceived. Consumers of media literacy invest time and attention to a product. Advertisers will promote a product to a wider audience. They advertise themselves in a manner that speaks directly to the person of interest. The media companies establish and define their own personal brand. They do their best to keep the customer satisfied, the markets and audiences reached, and the product to be promoted as much as possible. The employees of media are what is being promoted by other players in the economics game. They are the subject of promotion, who in turn provide the product that they created. This is the topic of niche audiences. Now, what is a niche audience? A niche audience is a large but somewhat specific audience. They're based on factors like sharing the same demographics, having same popularity, same levels of engagement, and often shared interests. As a musician, examples include fans of musical genres like grunge, as we talked about with Nirvana, where the audience at the time was completely unfazed and not wanting to embrace the sounds of the 80s and were looking for change. They also wanted something that was more introspective and a bit more creative and that spoke to them in a way that nobody else had before, which is why grunge immediately caught on with so many people as soon as it came out. And then that niche audience turned into a mass audience afterwards. So throughout this course, in key takeaways, what can we learn from this? When we use our emotional and cognitive traits in a balanced manner, that will help us understand differences in certain audience, how to connect those audiences, and the motivation for how and why we navigate through our surroundings. When faced with overwhelming information, take a step back to break down and carefully analyze the information to its entire degree. It is important to be open and understanding of how different information is perceived and why. Thank you.